Welcome to week 132 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We finished episode 639 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Monday, February 2nd, 1987. And we just saw a bunch of people from Santa Barbara just in the last few minutes. We just watched an episode of Canon, which was a two-hour episode, and it had Richard Hatch, who will someday be playing Stephen Slade, and it had Jack Carter, who we know as Brick Wallace's dad, Barnaby. And yesterday? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say we also saw Henry Darrow yesterday. Henry Darrow, sorry. On an old episode. In fact, I think it was one of the first episodes of Harry O.
I think he is in the first season. We had started watching Harry O on MeTV kind of partway through the second season when Henry Darrow was no longer on the show. But it looks like he is in the first season. So we will work our way back to where we started. Back on the Orient Express in 1987, Pearl has a dream about Kelly ignoring his love. Well, it's good to see that addressed in a dream, at least.
Could be a premonition.
I mean, for all we know, Kelly and Pearl may never have a scene again together. Cruz and Eden have a night together in their 1 hour and 4 minutes before they get to Paris. Cruz gets a telegram from Cece saying that Kelly is in the U.S., and so they make their arrangements to fly back. Pearl uses his power as the captain of the casino ferry to marry Cruz and Eden. That was a surprise. Reminded me a little of that. Was it Joe and Kelly getting married when they were in a collapsed basement? And didn't Cruz and Eden get marry themselves in a church already once? So. Yeah,
they've already had one of these pseudo weddings.
Cruz has actually had some funny lines and line readings on this Orient Express trip. Pearl says, "I'll do the honors. I used to be captain of a ship." And Cruz says, "I don't wish to bring up a sad part of history, but your boat sank." Cece accuses Mason of sending Victoria over there to plead his case with Cece. Of course, Mason says he didn't know anything about it. Victoria finds her apartment has been ransacked by Cece's investigator. She tells Mason that the bill from her hospital stay is missing. Mason says he'll be back in an hour to take her out to dinner, but when he shows up, she has prepared dinner, and they have dinner and dancing, and they end up kissing. Meanwhile, Cece's investigator tells Cece Victoria Lane is pregnant. So we will see. I assume there'll be... do you think Cece will at first assume it's Mason's or realize it's Cruz's?
I would think he might think it was Mason's first because the story, Victoria's, like, it's always been a little murky what actually happened between Victoria and Cruz on that island.
Oh, so. Yeah, and Cece may not know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think only Eden knows. Gina brags to Keith about stealing another $10,000 from Cece's bank account. And then Gina asks if he's worried that she'll transfer a few million and skip town without him. As I was typing it, I realized that would mean she'd have to leave Brandon, so I think that is not likely. Cece tries to kick Keith out when he spots him there, but Keith has come prepared with a warrant. And of course, the house is surrounded by his men, and they're just waiting for Kelly Capwell to try to show up there. Kelly and Jeffrey, meanwhile, run out of the truck when the driver discovers them, and they are no longer in Flagstaff, as I thought they would be, but they are in Santa Barbara, and Kelly runs to the museum, the art museum that she used to work at, apparently. Of course, we have seen that museum most associated with Lionel Lockridge. They hide out in a storeroom, and Kelly calls home, but Cece hangs up on her because Keith and Gina are right beside him. Gina immediately assumes it was Kelly calling, and Cece says Keith says doesn't matter. You know, we'll catch her here, we'll catch her there, wherever.
And I think I commented to you while we were watching this that the last time we really saw that storeroom or that it played a big role, was way back when Eden and Cruz were trying to catch a jewel thief. I think it was a jewel thief, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't remember that.
That was around... I don't think that storyline was ever really resolved.
But I don't remember them being at the art museum, right?
I thought they were.
The jewel thief was working in the hotel.
The jewel thief was at the hotel, but for some reason they were... I don't know if they were locked in that storeroom or they were in the art gallery together for some reason overnight.
I can't even remember that.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and maybe look at some past episodes.
Jeffrey goes out to get some food, and while Kelly looks through boxes, maybe for more disguises, Mrs. Pennyworth walks in and says, "There you are! It's time for our tour!" She's got a bunch of other old ladies, no offense, to tour around, and Mrs. Pennyworth is not through causing trouble, because halfway through the tour she goes, "I know where I know you from! You're Kelly Capwell!" And then immediately realizes, "Oh, the police want you!" And Kelly runs out, and of course she runs to call the police. So when Jeffrey gets to Johnny's, where he's ordered some food, he has to hide his face from Keith and Gina, who are there, and also avoid the bartenders coming after him when he pays with non-American money. And he sees on the TV that the art museum is surrounded. So he somehow manages to sneak in with the food and finds Kelly in the storeroom. And they manage to hide somehow in that room when the police are searching it. Keith, of course, gets a phone call also at Johnny's that Kelly is at the art museum and taunts Cece with that. He is also at Johnny's for some reason. And he won't tell Cece exactly where Kelly is, but Cece follows him to the art museum and then at some point grabs him by the lapels and tries to choke him. Keith is just going around taunting Cece whenever he can. Jeffrey and Kelly in the storeroom find a window, and Kelly looks out, and I think she sees Cece leaving. So I think that's how that ends. So I don't know if she will call to him somehow, but I mean, the place is surrounded by police, so. But if they didn't find them in there, they're actually kind of safe in there, I think. And that's it. That's all that happened on this Monday episode. We'll see if Kelly and Jeffrey live in that storeroom now. Or maybe Lionel will encounter them. Do you think Lionel would hide them?
Could be. I mean, he's kind of a romantic at heart, so he might take pity on them.
Yeah, I was talking about the Capwell yacht the other day as a place they could hide. What if Lionel hid them on the Lockridge yacht? They wouldn't think to look for them there, probably.
If the old houseboat that Cruz had was still in play, that would be a possibility as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, now that they've dismantled the Orient Express train set, perhaps they have room for... they've got the museum set put up there. I don't think we'll be seeing the full Johnny's or the full Orient Express for a while if they keep having to build temporary hiding places for Jeffrey and Kelly. But at least they're back in Santa Barbara and occasionally calling the house. I don't know if Cece would seem to be kind of stumped as to how he could get in contact with Kelly without Keith, figuring it out. So it is a stumper, even though everyone knows they're in town. They can't really get in contact with each other. But then Jeffrey may have more ability to sneak around. And I don't know, maybe Jeffrey could try to find Pearl or something. So that's it for the Monday episode. And we will continue the week with Tuesday's episode, number 640 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
As a once proud operator of a ferryboat operation, I used to be captain of a ship. It allows me to preside over marriages.
Well, Pearl, I hate to bring up a sad part of history, but your boat sank.
I don't think she's ever seen the inside of a museum in her life. Actually, as Mrs. C.C. Capwell, I'm on the top of your committee's guest list. And animal shelters has always been one of my pet charities.
Ball is for the homeless, Gina.
Well, in that case, I was thinking it might be a good idea to move maybe Oh, 8 or 10 of them into the guest house with you.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 640 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, February 3rd, 1987. We had talked yesterday about you had remembered Cruz and Eden having a romantic evening in the museum, so I searched my notes. And way back in the first few weeks of Santa Barbara, I found that Warren and Summer had a romantic evening in the museum, so that might be what you had remembered.
I think so. I think I was kind of mixing together two different storylines. Of course, we have the Cruz and Eden one, where they are locked in Nell Carter's bathroom, and they're trying to stalk the cat burglar. So I think I was thinking of that. But I'm also kind of proud of myself for remembering there was something going on in that storage room.
Yeah, because I didn't remember that at all. Episode 639 originally aired Tuesday, February 3rd, 1987. And Cece tells Sophia that Victoria Lane is pregnant. Sophia wonders if Cruz is the father, or could it be Mason? She tells Cece that Haley and Ted were the ones who found Victoria and Cruz on the island, so perhaps he could find out from Ted if he knows anything. Cece questions Ted, and Ted eventually confesses that Cruz and Victoria slept together in the lighthouse.
Now, it does occur to me, I know that Sophia and Cece's interest is in protecting Eden, but it does occur to me that, Victoria's not married, and none of the people that she is, suspected of having relations with is married either. So, is it really, it's not really a big deal?
Well, they're worried about Eden.
Yeah, I know they're worried about Eden, but
yeah, they seem to have grabbed this bull by the horns and run with it. Haley falls off a horse, and Jake carries her into the Abernathy stables. Ted comes in just as they are crawling around on the floor looking for her dropped comb. He gets upset that Haley has been sneaking off with Jake again, and so she ends up revealing that she's been getting secret riding lessons to surprise him and the Capwells. Ted kind of apologizes, but almost immediately has to tell her that he told Cece that Victoria and Cruz slept together, which he had promised Haley would remain a secret. So she is very upset by this, and Gina then later overhears her tell Ted, "You can't keep breaking promises to me." And Haley says to Gina, "Ted has made it perfectly clear that his family comes first." And Gina says, "Are you just realizing that? Blood runs thicker than water, Haley, and these people are thick as thieves." So, yeah, it'll be interesting if this puts another rift between Ted and Haley.
yeah, I kind of, I think when I watch soap operas, I'm always struck by how much these storylines depend on people not communicating. And she's trying to surprise Ted with riding lessons, but at this point it's costing her relationship with Ted, so is that really a fair trade-off?
I was just watching an episode of Beyond the Gates yesterday where the firefighter revealed to his fiancée that he can use his legs and had been planning to surprise her at the wedding, and she freaked out about that. I was not expecting that. So, yeah, these things very often don't go well.
I mean, I know myself, I would probably freak out about that too, because I would be more offended by someone lying to me for, it's hard to tell the timeline in soap operas, whether it's been months or just a few days.
Well, she asked when this started, and he said Labor Day, so that's September 2nd-ish, right? Mm-hmm. So, and this is mid-November now. Mason visits Victoria early in the morning, and she makes breakfast for him. Lionel encounters Sophia at the museum, preparing for the masquerade that we've never heard of before, and that apparently happens every year. Keith and Gina start to make love on a pile of money that Gina has stolen from Cece, but Keith spots an article in the paper about the charity masquerade that's happening at the museum. And he says, this is the perfect way for Kelly to talk to her parents if everyone's in costume, and he runs off. And Gina chases after them, but then returns for the money.
You know, it occurs to me that this masquerade thing is a bit of a lost opportunity for Santa Barbara, because I think some soap operas, I'm thinking of General Hospital, they kind of have this annual gala, and it's an excuse for all of the characters to dress up, and some of the actors who like to sing and dance, and you know, and have a lot of nefarious storylines as well. So it's a shame they haven't done this annually on Santa Barbara.
So 3rd January, and it's the first time we're hearing about it.
Yeah.
Lionel encounters Sophia at the museum as she is preparing for the masquerade, because as Kelly mentions during this episode, Sophia was the chair last year. Gina and Keith arrive just as Lionel is giving her a comforting hug, and they make the usual snide remarks, as you might expect. Then Keith tries to get Lionel to hand over the full guest list, which Lionel, I think, tells him to get a warrant. Victoria arrives to help. Apparently she was involved in this the whole time, and also the first time we've heard of it. And when she tries to lift a heavy object, Sophia stops her and tells her not to lift it, which Victoria finds odd. Kelly, of course, and Jeffrey are in the storeroom of the very museum that this is all happening in. And Kelly is watching Jeffrey sleep with an interesting smile on her face. When he wakes up, he gets annoyed to find that she is taking a shower in a little room next to the storeroom that has 2 towels and a shower. He refuses to turn around so that she can get dressed, so she enters a magician's cabinet to change, but gets stuck there. So this storeroom has all manner of weird stuff in it. Magician's cabinets. I wonder if we've seen that cabinet in the back of a truck once. Remember when Lionel fell off the train and had amnesia for a while, and he got in the truck with a bunch of traveling carnival people? I bet that cabinet was in that truck. A guard finds them, but he's quite nearsighted, farsighted, I don't know. Whatever it is, he doesn't recognize Kelly. But they pretend that they have been flown in especially to catalog these items and make up fake accents, and they bluff their way into saying that they should be there and that he should actually not be delaying them because it's costing the museum thousands of dollars. Then Kelly figures out that the masquerade must be going on. That's why they're hearing all this commotion and why the guard said the museum's closed. And figures that her mother is probably there because she was the chair last year. Jeffrey says, no, you should stay in here. I'll go and check things out. But of course, Kelly leaves and just is about to call out to Sophia when Jeffrey comes up behind her and puts his hand over her mouth. They have a bit of an argument over who's in charge and who's been in charge since they got, into that church, I guess, in Zurich. And then later they barely manage to hide when Keith and his gang search the room. They seem to be very obviously right near there where they are, but they don't actually search it. They just kind of look in. Mm-hmm. They don't even look in the magic cabinet, which is right there, which is where I thought they were going to hide, quite frankly. But I guess there was a whole thing about them worried about being stuck earlier. So, and then there's a wacky thing with a piece of pizza that Jeffrey had sneaked in there for her, but hadn't given her yet, and ended up on his shirt while they were ducking behind the cabinet. So I feel like they will make contact, but I think they just have to wait till the masquerade starts and, cobble together some costumes from what the stuff they find in the storeroom. Cece tells Mason that he knows Victoria is pregnant and that Victoria and Cruz slept together. Mason says, for all you know, the baby could be mine. Mason tells Victoria that Cece's man is the one who broke into her apartment and stole her hospital medical bill, and that he knows she's pregnant. Victoria says, well, that explains Sophia. Mason says that Cece definitely won't tell Eden because he does not want her to know. And Mason and Victoria get a little bit closer. And that is it. Anything you wanted to add about these goings on?
Not really. The only thing that kind of ran through my head when they were talking about the masquerade ball was, I think it was a behind-the-scenes documentary we saw, maybe about the making of General Hospital's gala, something like that. And the actors commenting that sequin burn is actually a peril of being an actor on a soap opera. So if we see lots of sequined outfits, know that there's probably a bit of pain involved in that.
Mm-hmm. And this week they've had, it's been the 60th anniversary of Days of Our Lives this week on TV, and we've been watching that. And, of course, Melissa Brennan is there as Jennifer right now. Theo Penglis appeared briefly this week as either Tony or Andre. And who else? Well, Stephen Nichols, who plays Patch on that show. He will be on Santa Barbara someday. And who else? Eileen Davidson hasn't been on for a few years. And Stephen Schnetzer is not a Santa Barbara person, but he was on Another World as Cass Winthrop, and he showed up this week too. So that was some fun sightings. Now we had a full cast credits for the first time in a while, and guess what? A bunch of people have finally been removed from the credits. Rosa is gone! We last saw Margarita Cordova in episode 597, December 2nd. So almost, 2 months, basically, right? What is it, February 2nd now? February 3rd, yeah. And one of your other guesses, Courtney Capwell is gone. Julia Campbell last appeared in episode 608, December 18th. She is theoretically still in Santa Barbara, because no one's mentioned her leaving, but we will never see her again.
So maybe she went back to Boston, who knows?
Probably. She got off easy, I think. Mm-hmm. Lily Light, Lynn Clark, last appeared December 25th, episode 613, when she said she wasn't going to go to Gina's Christmas dinner. And that's the last time we'll ever see Lynn Clark. Lily Light will appear many years from now, played by a different actress. So whether we find out where Lily's gone off to, we don't know. Perhaps Gina doesn't even know she's left town. She's just been too distracted with all the money. And the fourth person that 1, 2, 3, 4 is missing is Brian Bradford. I think that was another one of your guesses, right? Mm-hmm. Kyle Secor was last seen January 7th in episode 621, and we will never see him again. And the fourth person of the batch that I had told you had left the show that you didn't guess because he's so on so rarely you didn't even think about him. Paul Whitney, Stoney Jackson, last appeared January 13th in episode 625. So I guess Paul and Alice will not be dating anymore.
Yeah, that's a shame, actually. I think I was hoping, even peripherally, he might stick around a little bit just to provide an option for Alice. So
in the space of a week, both of her suitors left town without mentioning it to anyone. So, because Brian theoretically is still in town too. Maybe Pearl will get a letter. Pearl will have a few bad days, I think, in the very near future. So of those people, the only two we'll see again are Rosa and Lily eventually. So that is now a streamlined credits that we have. Now, there was an interesting change in the credits. Tory Lane is now being credited as Victoria Lane. Mm-hmm. Maybe because she's not an actress anymore and she's just Victoria. I don't know. Maybe she'll be Victoria Lane Capwell soon. Sophia Capwell Armonti is once again Sophia Capwell Armonti with a space between the Capwell and the Armonti, not a slash. Maybe they've gotten over putting a slash. I've never seen a slash in a name. I don't know why they would have ever done it that way in the first place. And Henry was played by Claude Earl Jones. That was our security guard at the museum. And then they had a full crew credits too, which I never read. But in case you're wanting an episode with full cast and crew credits, or just a long version of the closing theme, that's episode 640. All right, we'll be back for the Wednesday episode 641 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Look, it's one thing to try to make your marriage work. It's another thing to think that any Capwell is going to put anyone else before another full-blooded Capwell. Blood runs thicker than water, Haley, and these people run as thick as thieves.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 641 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Wednesday, February 4th, 1987. Last night we watched The Rockford Files, and John Cipher was on as a guest star in a two-parter. He'll be playing Dr. Arthur Donnelly next year. And we always forget to mention James Luisi. He's joined the regular batch of people on Rockford Files. He'll be playing Ben Clark later in 1987. So we've seen him in a lot, and I totally had forgotten he was on Santa Barbara.
I believe we saw in the credits a mention of one of our CCs. We couldn't find him, and I can't even remember what show that was now. But.
Yeah, we saw Charles Bateman, right? In the credits of something we watched yesterday. And I thought, I hadn't even seen him. So maybe I'll track that down. And give you an update in case you want to track down all his appearances. Pearl, Cruz, and Eden return. And Sophia notes that Cruz and Eden seem to have gotten closer again. Cece and Sophia tell Eden about Gina's embezzlement. And Sophia doesn't think they can get Keith as well as Gina. But Cece says, nope, we're getting them both. Sophia wants to publicize the costumes they'll be wearing at the masquerade so Kelly will know what to look for. They are all thinking Kelly will find some way to sneak into that museum, little knowing she is still there. Cece yells at Mason, asking why Victoria Lane is still in town. And Mason says she's flat broke. Cece asks Mason to find out what her price is to leave town, and Mason says to find it himself. So I don't know if Mason has hatched a scheme yet to solve this Victoria crisis. Cruz gets called into the DA's office and is shocked to find Keith instead of Mason is there. Keith says if he helped Kelly, he's through. Cruz says that he's in the same trouble because he's been helping Gina blackmail Cece. And Keith says, blackmail? Oh, I'm pretty sure Gina's in love with Cece. Cruz spots an officer that he recognizes at the Orient Express. Hey, we've seen the Orient Express again. Mm-hmm. Pretty expanded, although we saw a lot of close-ups. I think we saw a much larger section of it than we have for a while. And the officer says, well, you never saw me, but Keith Timmons is focused on the museum. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that info is really helping Cruz, because Cece will tell him, oh yeah, Keith's swarming all over that museum. Cruz asks Eden to move back into the beach house, and they spend the night there.
We hear a lot of Cruz and Eden's music in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Their little theme music.
Julia watches Keith hold a press conference announcing that Kelly Capwell will be brought to justice. Mason and Julia are chatting next to Irene, Keith's secretary, who accidentally calls Mason the DA because she used to be his secretary. Mason says it's best to treat Timmons like a common housefly, to which Julia replies, I'd like to swat him all right. Irene says, he's like a cross between Hitler and Harpo Marx. Irene is bringing Mason a bunch of messages from Victoria Lane. She says, I used to love her television show. Gina has bought some earrings for Lily. So apparently Lily's still around in the mind of Santa Barbara.
Unless she's going to mail them to Lily, but we didn't really get any indication of that.
No. Keith and Gina make love and plan their costumes for the masquerade. Keith suggests Bonnie and Clyde. They also talk about Antony and Cleopatra. Keith finds a sheet and plays Nero for much of the episode. I suspect we won't see any of the ones that they mentioned today, and we'll be surprised. I can't remember what they wear. In fact, I can't remember this masquerade party at all, so I'll be as surprised as anyone at what everyone's wearing.
Well, I bet you can't remember the reunion either.
No, which I'm sure we saw a photo of. Maybe the reunion will be this year, which, they better hurry, because I don't know how much longer Santana's going to be in town.
It would have been such a good opportunity for some interesting storylines, but...
Mm-hmm. Would have made sense around the time of the Victoria Lane arrival. Gina suggests they get married. They've been drinking all day. And Keith says, not with your record. So I think Gina was kind of hurt by the fact that Keith doesn't want to marry her after her inevitable divorce from Cece. Victoria tells Mason she's decided to leave Santa Barbara. He spends the rest of the episode trying to convince her to stay. As Julia said the other day, she's forever leaving town. Pearl fills Julia in on his concerns over his relationship with Kelly. And he starts to be concerned that he sent Jeffrey Conrad over there in his place. He says, we should be having all these adventures together. And we never even went out on a proper date, Julia tells him she's thinking of canceling her baby-making experiment. And Pearl begs her to tell him who was this person that she had earmarked as the father of her baby. And she reveals it was Mason Capwell, much to Pearl's astonishment. Then Julia is stricken with some kind of sickness. Thoughts?
No.
I feel like Julia might be pregnant. We'll be back. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
You're as much of an ignoramus about this as I... Let's get out of here. All this good taste is giving me the creeps.
You two look a little like Nero. All you need is a fiddle, darling.
No, darling, it was a lyre, and I can strum it while Cece burns.
Don't need a lyre when you have me.
And I'll strum you.
Welcome to episode 642 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. Originally aired Thursday, February 5th, 1987. On Canon, we saw Teo Penglis, who will be playing Micah DeAngelis someday on Santa Barbara, but who plays Tony and hopefully soon Andre DeMira on Days of Our Lives. And we saw Henry Darrow in two things, Harry O and the new Dick Van Dyke Show, which I finally found the last episode that I was missing. So we'll be watching that tonight. I assume he'll be on again as well.
And he was wearing a very funky mid-1970s polyester shirt in the Dick Van Dyke episode.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know where Keith and Gina are hanging out, because it has a pillar, and then it has those doors that look like the Capwell Mansion doors. So I thought they were somehow hiding in the Capwell Mansion. But then Cece comes over, so I'm thinking, is it Keith's apartment? So they were worried that Cece could walk in on them at one point, which I was confused about. Cece shows up and Gina hides, and Cece offers Keith a blank check to free Kelly. So that's interesting. Keith tears it up, which is also interesting. I think Gina was a little annoyed that he tore up a blank check, but he said that he's got his sights on a bigger payoff. Keith also sees Sophia's announcement in the paper and suspects immediately it's a code for Kelly. They decide that, Sophia and Cece decide they need a list of all the guests and what they're wearing. so that when they see Kelly, they'll know it's her by process of elimination. Kelly sees the message in the paper, addressed to Mrs. Grundy, which she knows is for her immediately because Mrs. Grundy was her childhood doll. I wonder if this was the Psycho Gazebo doll that Kelly was staring off into space at for the longest time. I wonder if that story's picking up again, or if it's a different doll.
I feel like we need to use our energy on her falling in love rather than old dolls.
Guess what's magically appeared in the storeroom? 2 full costumes of Japanese origin, complete with ceramic full face masks, which would be handy for someone who was trying to sneak into a masquerade unseen.
That was very lucky.
Yeah, because otherwise they would have had to be girl in an orange jumpsuit with a floppy hat and guy with, a paper pirate hat on his head. So good thing they found that. Jeffrey, of course, says under no circumstances will they be attending the masquerade. The guard comes in with a uniformed police officer to use the photocopier because the Capwells have called and they immediately need a complete guest list. Well, they get called away at some point, and Kelly takes the opportunity to add Mr. and Mrs. Grundy to the bottom of the list. And so, of course, when Sophia sees it, she knows that Kelly got her message. Oddly enough, they don't put 2 and 2 together that Kelly's hiding in the museum. Keith shows up at the Capwell mansion, wondering why Gina didn't meet him at the Orient Express as they had decided, and she's made a 180. She's decided marrying him would be a terrible idea, and he should be focusing all of his efforts on getting money and not romance. So Keith is very upset by this and says, "You weren't worth the cost of those dinners," and she slaps him. And Keith slaps her back, and they keep slapping each other back and forth for a surprisingly long amount of time until Mason walks in the front door where they just happen to be standing.
It's like Punch and Judy.
Yeah, I wonder if Lane Davies just let them slap each other a few extra times before making his entrance, because they couldn't really stop until he saw them. He makes a few off-color remarks, and then Cece comes around the corner and says, "What the hell are you doing in my house again?" Keith is always in his house. Gina says to Cece she'll be ready in 30 minutes for the masquerade, and he says, "Well, I'm leaving in 10. You can go stag." Keith says, "I'll see you in the morning at Kelly's arraignment." We now see everyone getting into costume for the day. Eden's costume is Kate from Taming of the Shrew. Cruz says, "I don't see you as a shrew," and Eden says, "That's because you tamed me."
I think this was just an excuse to stick Eden in a princess dress.
Cruz is not pleased with his Petruchio costume.
I should say for the record, I actually wasn't pleased with any of the costumes because they seem to have confused masquerade and costume party. And at a masquerade, of course, you're supposed to wear a mask and your identity is supposed to be a secret. So hardly anyone is wearing a mask in this party.
Yes, that is true. Petruchio, says Cruz. Is that the guy with the nose? So he is clearly dressed for the Shakespearean stage. Gina nearly gets arrested for her Lady Godiva costume. When she attacks the cop, Keith has to vouch for her. Gina says, "This moron is trying to arrest me for indecent exposure," to which Keith responds, "She's decently exposed." They end up having to run out of there because he doesn't recognize Keith as the DA. Carolyn is Scarlett O'Hara, and Lionel is Red Butler. Jane has kind of a tramp costume, but Warren can't really find anything he wants to wear, and they decide to just stay home and hang out with each other. John Tesh, our big guest star of the year, arrives. I'm John Tesh from Entertainment Tonight. He has a nice little scene with Cruz. Cruz says, "I enjoy your work on the Tour de France," but his interaction with Cece is actually kind of weird. And John ends up kind of just looking kind of nonplussed by the encounter. And that is the end of our guest appearance by John Tesh. I don't think he's in tomorrow's episode. I think Mary Hart had a better, cameo at Kelly's wedding. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking there. He wasn't even,
Yeah, you would have
touted.
thought he could have been interviewing people as they came in or something like that. But,
And as they did once before an assassin fell through the ceiling, Cruisin' Eden wow everyone with a clearly choreographed dance. This is a, olden times dance. I don't know all the right names for these things. But everyone applauds, as they did last time. Mason is dressed as Hamlet, and Victoria is Ophelia. Victoria says the problem with Hamlet is he's got all the good lines in that play. Or maybe she just says all the lines in that play. He has a little York skull to go with that. And they talk about whether or not he'd want to be with a pregnant woman. Later, Cece, he stops by at the Capwell house, and Cece, once again, goes at it with him over Victoria. And he continues to say that the baby might be his. And Cece says to Sophia, after Mason's gone, he knows damn well that baby is Cruz's. And Sophia says, well, if it were Mason's child, he would probably have proposed to her. To which Cece says, what did you say? Can you go to the museum without me? I have to swing by my lawyer's office. And at the museum, Cece corners Mason and says, my boy, I have an idea. I want you to marry Victoria, claim the baby as your own, and if it's a boy, I'll see to it you get the lion's share of my father's inheritance as specified in his will. Mason says, if I were prone to drama, I'd say the devil just offered to buy my soul. So this has some overlappings with what I was guessing. Not quite exactly the same, but I have to confess I do remember Cece's father's will being coming into play in this storyline, so I kind of cheated on that bit. So I feel like we're going to have a wedding soon, and it seems like they're already, kind of have feelings for each other, so it's not the worst thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Any guesses on the name of the child? I thought of this the other night when I remembered the child's name.
No.
Yeah, okay. You can think that through as the days go on. Something might come to you. Kelly locks Jeffrey in the bathroom, and by the time he gets out, he sees one of the Japanese costumes is missing. Kelly approaches Sophia, but when she says, Mama, Keith grabs her. Sophia says to Cece, I think Kelly's here. Or no, she says, Kelly's here. So she definitely recognized Kelly's voice. Keith has all the cops on the lookout for a Japanese costume, and a figure appears in a Japanese costume in the doorway. Clearly a different mask. I assume it's Jeffrey.
I assume so.
Unless there's a twist and there's a third Japanese costume.
Or someone else grabbed that costume.
Mm-hmm.
The second one.
But if it is Jeffrey, he might go straight to jail. So we'll see. We'll see who it actually is. And that is the end. We had two little cliffhangers. The offer to Mason, which he hasn't responded to yet, and the Kelly being spotted, and the mysterious Japanese figure in the doorway. We had casting crew credits again after only 2 days. The main cast were still the same, not unexpectedly. And as himself, John Tesh. Henry returned, played by Claude Earl Jones, and Purgatory Cop was David J. Partington. So I feel like maybe this bar we see from time to time, that's where Lady Godiva was arrested, is Purgatory, where they spent New Year's Eve. So I think we're seeing the Purgatory bar alternating with Johnny's, but it's hard to tell them apart when they're shooting everything in close-up because all their sets are half taken apart to make room for a train or something. Tomorrow's already Friday. So that will be our final episode of the week. We will be back after episode 643 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 643 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, February 6th, 1987. And Haley gets Jake to help her find a polo player outfit, which she'll use as her masquerade costume. But his car breaks down, and it's hours before she gets home. Ted says she's been gone for 5 hours, and she saw that Jake dropped her off. So he gets very upset with her, and she gets very upset with him.
Now, this is one of these plots that really only works pre-cell phone.
Mm-hmm. Because they were stranded on a road in the middle of nowhere without access to a payphone. So she ends up leaving home while Ted goes to the party alone. Jake had mentioned he was going to have some drinks at Purgatory, and so that's where Haley heads. And they have continue their chat that they had in the car about life and things. So they have a nice time. I think Haley's a bit worried because at one point, when she was helping him hold the flashlight while he was fixing the car, I think their hands touched when she passed him a wrench, and he clearly thought that was something that he liked, and she could tell. Anyway, he offers her a ride home, but she declines. Somehow, though, they do end up in the same car together. I'm not sure when that change of mind happened. And they end up in a car accident. So we'll see how badly either of them gets injured, and if Ted will be happy that they've ended up in the hospital together.
Wasn't a good night for them in cars.
No. Pandemonium at the gala as Kelly and Jeffrey run from the police. Jeffrey makes it outside, and Kelly makes it back to the storeroom. But the police are following her, so she opens the window to throw them off and hides in the magic cabinet. They do see the window, but they decide, let's get some tools and break this thing open just in case. Luckily, someone rides to Kelly's rescue. Lionel walks in and says, "Are you kidding? This belonged to Houdini. You can't imagine how much the museum paid for it. I happen to be something of an amateur magician myself. I'll show you how it opens." And he opens up the front, and he opens up a secret panel in the back, and it's empty. After they leave, he opens up a second panel, and that's where Kelly is. And he helps her out. Keith, of course, is not too happy to hear about that, and they all run back to the storeroom and find someone in the kabuki costume, who Keith assumes is Kelly, but of course it's Lionel. He said, "Oh, I saw this lying here, and always wanted to play Kabuki Boy, so put that on." And I assumed you knew she'd gone out the window. I didn't think you'd be coming back.
So Kelly actually is another potential ally, which is nice.
Yeah. When Cece hears about that, he's very annoyed and says, don't expect me to thank him. He's doing it for some ulterior motive. But, Cruz and Eden managed to corner Lionel, and he reveals that he did see Kelly, but 5 minutes earlier. Kelly joins Jeffrey outside in the bushes, and they decide that since the museum has already been searched now, it's safer to go back inside. So I think they climb back in the window. Keith had told everyone at some point that no one should leave the party and everyone should take off their masks while they were searching, but eventually they finish, and so they tell everyone they can go. And there's a little scene with Gina in her Lady Godiva outfit. Mm-hmm. Keith says, "It must be kind of weird when you take that off. You won't really notice a difference." Keith tells Cruz and Eden as they get ready to leave that don't worry if Kelly shows up at the beach house because it's being watched and your phone is being bugged. When they get home, Cruz tells Eden it's about time they got married and started a family. Cece tells Mason that he's been useless in protecting Kelly, that he's the one who's been doing it this whole time, but at least he should do something to protect Eden. Julia shows up with no costume because she just wants to tell Mason that she might be pregnant. He misinterprets where she's going with this and interrupts her by saying, yeah, we did have a pretty nice time together, but that's over now and we can move on with other people. So Julia never does get it out. And later, at Purgatory, I believe, tells Lionel that she accidentally fell in love with Mason. And then Julia's doctor, who also likes to hang out at Purgatory, says, hey, your tests are in already. You're pregnant. On the other side of town, Mason asks Victoria to marry him. So, classic things happening at the wrong time. Cruz and Eden, of course, are probably going to have smooth sailing for a little while before the next thing messes them up, especially if the baby's parentage is covered up for a while by Mason until things go right. But if it's a girl, of course, he won't be able to get his hands on Cece's money that way, so things may fall apart if that is the case. But we'll see how long Cruz and Eden are happy for. But I feel like the thing that breaks them up next will be the baby, so that could be a while. So we might be able to get some reading done during their long love scene episodes for the next few months. And that is it for this week. We've had our big surprise gala come and go in the course of a week. But Kelly and Jeffrey go to sleep on the floor of the storeroom. And I feel like really that story hasn't moved on for them, has it? There was a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. And now they're back in the place they started, except that Lionel has talked to them and is an ally. And who knows, maybe Lionel and Kelly made a plan.
Maybe they'll end up in the Lockridge house as well. You never know.
That's true. Yeah. Lionel may show up there to save them somehow, smuggle them out in a sarcophagus and take that to the Lockridge house. I guess with Pearl's brother presumably moving out at some point, there'll be room.
Well, and I was thinking that the Lockridges did have a wine cellar as well, didn't they? I don't think it connects with the CC's house anymore, but...
No, I think that tunnel's collapsed. I don't think they ever get it uncollapsed for the rest of the show. But Lionel and Sophia can easily chat, so I think, even though they'll still be in hiding for a while until the whole tape thing gets resolved, but I feel like maybe Cece and Sophia are just going to have to stick it out for the next 3 months and wait for the 6 months to finish. So,
yeah, it gives a little more time for the romance to also blossom.
Yeah, that's true. Jeffrey and Kelly can have a lot of scenes together. Can have the odd one with the clan in the Lockridge house if that's where they end up. Cece and Sophia could come visit, although I think Keith would be suspicious if Cece went to visit Kelly at the Lockridges. So the actual funny thing is Sophia might visit her, but Cece might not be able to just because it would look bad. Okay, if that's where they end up. I honestly don't remember how anything progresses. So we'll find out maybe next week when we start week 133. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
You'll do fine. You've worked for Keith before.
Oh, that's true, but, he's like a cross between Hitler and Harpo Marx.